Today on the Ave Podcast, we rise live from the lockdown city of Toronto, and we discuss the NFL playoffs. I'm joined by South Shore Ave family member Roger Callendar as we fulfill our annual obligations and break down the playoffs round by round. Plus, I also share my thoughts on this James Harden blockbuster trade to the Brooklyn Nets. And plus, we get into a little Trump talk. You saw what he did. Considering the ramifications of what that riot did, and it's still on the tip of everybody's tongue, we may as well share a few minutes on this subject. Shameless plug, check out last week's episode of the Ave Podcast to hear my thoughts on the Capitol Hill Riots. We try to keep it short and sweet because I'm thinking this is only the beginning, unfortunately. I may end up visiting this topic a few more times in the near future. Shameless plug over. No, wait, hold on. South Shore Ave is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, TuneIn and Alexa, Stitcher, anywhere where you listen to your podcast. Hit the like button, listen, rate, review, and subscribe to all of the shows, which now includes the South Shore Ave YouTube channel. Like and subscribe, share comments. All the same rules apply to that. You know how it is. And if you know, then it shouldn't be a problem giving me those 5 stars, right? Give me them 5 stars. Channeling my inner Debo here. And to go way back into my catalog of pod shows, make sure you check out SouthShoreAve.com. Once again, that's SouthShoreAve.com. And also, as a disclaimer, this episode contains explicit language. So I just want to give you fair warning. All right, I want to give you the heads up. It's the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio. They won't let me out. They won't let me out. Lockdown. They won't let me out. No.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio.
So before we begin, let me share my thoughts on this Harden blockbuster trade, which happened a couple of days ago. I hate it. All right, let's go talk football. No, I'm joking. But seriously, I'm not crazy about this trade, and here's why. Number one, I thought we were done with this super team shit, and I'm annoyed that we got to see this again now. When the Raptors beat Golden State in the NBA Finals, we knew this was going to be a different time for Golden State, specifically due to injuries to Klay Thompson and then with KD, and we knew KD might leave regardless if he got hurt or not. But there was a possibility that another one could be formed, especially when LeBron James and the Lakers were recruiting Kawhi. But once Kawhi shunned them and joined up with Paul George and created a super duo with the Clippers, I thought the NBA was going back to being a little more normalized. You know what I mean? The most you would see is maybe tag teams, duos, and then you just build a team around that duo. And it seemed to work. I like seeing it. And look, the Lakers won the title, but even though they won the title, they didn't seem unbeatable. Even going into this season, the Lakers are still the favorites to me, but you can still feel like they could be beat. And it makes it interesting, You still have the Clippers, you have the Nuggets and the Jazz in the West, as well as Milwaukee. You got Miami, now Philly. Joel Embiid has finally looked like he's starting to realize his NBA potential. Him being my dark horse MVP, is it so crazy now, huh? Mm-hmm. But especially Brooklyn in terms of being a championship contender. We don't know where the hell Kyrie is, and he seems to be invoking the spirit of Where's Waldo right now. But they have a stacked team around KD and Waldo. And when both those guys miss a night, the Nets still play so hard that they still have a chance to win. And they still have some really good talent. They're still going to be in some games and seriously compete every night. They don't play any defense right now, granted, but there's still so much time to figure that out. Maybe make a trade for that good wing defender or a big that can help out the back line. Or at least to help out Jared Allen. But, I was excited to see how this was going to go and what they would do around that and how this team would do against the other contenders in the East. They were one of the favorites to make it to the finals, in my opinion, even with all the craziness that's happening with Waldo. And now they dug into that depth to get Harden, and you're giving them 3 players in their primes. I understand it. But all of them need the ball in similar fashion. And unless James is going to revert back to his ways in OKC where he's more of a facilitator, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work. Either they're going to dominate or it's going to be a disaster. There's going to be no in between, which leads to my second point. I was a big fan of how the Nets built themselves up from the bottom after they traded everything for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce to work with Joe Johnson, Darren Williams, and Brook Lopez back in the mid-2010s. After they did that, they basically rid themselves of almost all of their draft picks or a possibility of having good selections in their drafts, and they had to build from within. They focused on building the right culture first and getting the young players to fit that culture. By 2019, they were in the playoffs. They had all these good young wings in D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert. You had Jared Allen, who was young, but you could see what his future was going to be once he got stronger. And they got cap space now to attract not one, but possibly 2 stars if needed. They were kind of like the Clippers who, after Blake Griffin and CP3, after that era and the Lob City era ended, they were building their team a certain way that became attractive to play in or play with, especially now when you consider the major market that they're in. Yeah, it's not the Lakers and the Knicks who have that history, but in this day and age, man, they were set up to create a new legacy as long as they had the right players. They were wifey material. They were looking right. Especially when you got to know them. You know what I mean? So with Brooklyn, they got KD and Waldo to join them, but already they were slowly trying to change who they were and what attracted them to them in the first place. Waldo clashed with Kenny Atkinson. He ended up walking, and then Waldo got hurt and, did his thing and disappeared. Yet the Nets still went into the bubble and played really hard. They got swept by the Raptors in the playoffs, but you could imagine how good this team was going to be. Now with this trade, you basically threw away the culture that you built the last few years. And you can argue that this is what you do, especially if you're a franchise that hasn't won a chip before. I can understand that argument a little bit, and I understand the need to go all in. But this could be where you're just doing a little too much, because I think that they had enough on their plate as it is to win. And remember, they still have KD and Waldo for 3 more years. Like, you want to win now, but there's still time to figure this out. And this leads to my third point. I really hated how Harden got rewarded for all of this, man. Like, he basically shitted his way out of Houston. And Houston gave him the world, man. They gave him the world. They lavished him with max contract after max extension after max contract. They built everything around him. They got him every player that he requested, every star that he wanted to play with, from D12 to CP3 to Westbrook. And that still wasn't enough for him to stay, man. I mean, look, he had problems with the owner, Tim Fertitta. And especially I think it was due to the fact that he was a huge Trump supporter. Then again, he would have had a lot of problems with a lot of these owners who voted for Trump anyway. The way Harden went about it, though, the perception was like it left him looking like an asshole, because from skipping, the training camp to go party with little baby and them, and just how he was moving with his teammates. That last press conference that he had in Houston was telling in a lot of ways, because everything from what he said in terms of this is not going to work, we're not going to win, we're not good enough, I just want to go. And then hearing John Wall's and DeMarcus Cousins' response to that, I thought it was telling. He made a mess about it, and now he got rewarded to going exactly where he wanted to go. So I think this tells you that when you're a superstar, no matter how long your contract is for, no matter how big your contract is, you can leave once you're ready to leave. And I bring up Giannis because as great as it was watching him stay with Milwaukee and sign that Supermax and set up his family for generational wealth, look, if he's not satisfied the next couple of years and he wants to leave, he's going to go. Even if he has to make a mess, he's going to bounce. And I think the other thing that it should tell you, too, is that new collective bargaining agreement, those meetings are going to be contentious. I can't see the owners continuing to see these things like this play out. I just don't. Between all the lost monies from, having little to no fans in the arenas, because obviously during this pandemic, and seeing things like this over the last 5 to 10 years or so, I think it's going to get a little nasty. And my other point is, I guess point number 4, I pour out a little liquor for Jared Allen, man. Yeah, it's pro sports, and every player has a chance to be traded. I get that. But you were the only real defending big on Brooklyn, and he's been improving every year since he's got there. He's gotten a little stronger. He's improved on his skills a little bit more every year. And just when you thought he was about to reap the benefits of team success, they sent him to Cleveland. If this was snakes and ladders, this would be like rolling the dice and getting to 86 and then rolling down the ladder all the way to number 22. And on top of it, you still got to fight for playing time yet again with all the bigs that's already there. I feel for him, man. I do. At least with LeVert, he ends up with the Pacers, but he can still go spread his wings on a good team that needs his scoring and the things that he does best. But Allen is about to play with guards that don't pass. And unless they trade one or two of these bigs before the trade deadline, I don't see how this benefits him right now. Honestly, he should have been playing more in Brooklyn. Now he's got to fight for minutes again in Cleveland. Man, they did him wrong, man. They did him wrong. They did him wrong. But let me say my thoughts for now. I'm going to be doing another episode next week on the NBA season so far. That will be out next week, so I'll dive into this topic more. But for now, let's bring Roger in, who's been waiting behind the velvet rope, experiencing his third pat down to discuss these NFL games. So let's let him in right now. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Ave Podcast. Where should we begin, Roger? Where should we begin? Look, man, I'm actually pretty surprised of last week's matchups in terms of at least some of the games. So I know we're gonna break down the upcoming 4 playoff matchups for this weekend. But before we start, I should say I have a couple of questions that I gotta ask. So we'll just get right into it. I want to start with the Steelers, man.
Steelers.
I want to start with the Steelers. There's a chance Big Ben will return next season. Now, do you think that the Steelers will be wise to bring him back with a new offensive coordinator? Or should the Steelers tell Ben the same thing that Tribe Called Quest named their last album? Thank you for your service. We got it from here.
Well, to be honest with you, I think they need to bring Big Ben back simply for the fact that they don't have anybody waiting to take over. The offense, I find in general, Big Ben did very well this year. Like, the offense ran really well through him. They started off the season 11-0, which means you can't get any better than that. It's just after that, it just seemed like the team just happened to break down for some strange reason. I think they need him. I think they need to bring him back, at least until they could find somebody else in the background to come in and take over. Like, they need to find a predecessor for him.
They got to draft his replacement at some point, man. I totally agree with you. They started off the year 11-0. I actually thought he might be deserving of a few MVP votes here or there, or at least be in the top 5. I mean, when the team goes 11-0, you got to take some sort of credit for that, right? And they didn't have any receiver, anybody that was completely. They're all good, but they weren't there was nobody completely outstanding. You know what I mean? That should take that mark for MVP, at least for this team. So I thought it would more likely be him. I just thought their mistake was they stuck to throwing the ball exclusively, and they became predictable. And then when they went on that losing, it's not that they went on a losing streak, but they lost 4 of their last five games essentially, right?
Yeah, they did.
Pretty much after that, they barely hung on to that 3rd seed, to be honest with you, because really and truly they should have been the 2nd seed at worst, at worst. But they ended up tumbling down to the 3rd seed, and I just thought they just became predictable. And when you look at their teams, because he's 38 years old, but when you look, or at least I think he's 38 or 39 years old, but
I think he's 39.
39, yeah. So when you look at all the old QBs that are out there, from this year, which is in these playoffs, which is Rivers, Brady, Breeze, himself that played this weekend, he looks the worst physically, man.
He does. He does.
Oh
he does.
Really...
But he always looked bad. He always looked like he's struggling. He's struggling to run the ball. He's struggling to run with the ball. He's struggling to pass the ball. He always looks like he's struggling. So I wasn't too surprised about that.
And it's funny because, due to his, I guess age now is going to make that difference for all of them. But you remember back in the day, at least he would be able to, shrug off the defenders, and he would still scramble and get you some yards. I mean, those days are way gone now. But that whole first sequence when the ball went over his head, the guy couldn't even bend down to land on the ball.
See, but I question whether he actually wanted to.
Well, that too.
he did not look like he was willing to do it. He looked like he was just standing there being like, damn, that ball is live, man. Looking around. I'm seeing Connor's diving all over the place trying to grab it. Mm-hmm. And Big Ben's just sitting back. He's just like, geez, that ball's live. Even when it went into the end zone, he was just kind of just staring at it. I was like, do something, jump on it, kick it out of bounds, do something.
You know what, Roger? I completely relate to this because, pre-COVID, I used to have my weekend basketball runs, and pretty much it's like 40 and up at this point, the guys, right? But it's back in the day, when you're 20, 25 years old, if there was a loose ball or a ball was about to go out of bounds, one of the guys will go and dive for the ball. Make sure it doesn't go out of bounds because, you can bounce back. You're all right. But at this stage now, when there's a loose ball, you're just letting that shit go. And even if you are in shape, even if you are in great shape, you can't handle those falls anymore, man. To hit the ground, it's not like you actually really gotta like you're like, okay, this is the one time I'm doing it. Let me do it now. You know what I mean? Like you really gotta think about doing it. You know what I mean? And it's like just those loose balls. You're just like, you know what? Fuck it, let it go out of bounds. Is that possession really important? and that's what that reminded me of. He's like, he's almost like he thought about it. Was just like, you know what? Fuck it, we'll get it back the next play.
Yeah, I think Big Ben just got old. That's what it is. And I mean, he was injured last year too.
Oh yeah.
So, Big Ben has never been. I guess his thing was always been his toughness. He's been able to stand in those pockets, take those hits. He's had all sorts of injuries. But, I mean, those injuries add up after a while. And I find this year specifically, their run game, they actually went away from the running game. And it was just inefficient. Well, actually, it was inefficient when they were trying it.
Yeah.
So they put the ball in his hands. And he just can't do it for a whole season. Yeah. He might have been able to do it for 11 games. But then the rest of the time, it's like, yeah, he got predictable. People started knowing they're going to pass. They're not going to run because they're not good at running the ball anymore.
Yeah.
And that was their downfall.
Yeah, I still think, though, you kind of got to work with what you have. I still think I'm not saying you should have ran like 25, 30 times, but I think at some point you had to at least try to implement it more. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the way they kind of went away from it, it was like, you know what? It's not like you have like, DeAndre Hopkins and Antonio Brown in his prime, and you have like three elite receivers where you're just like, we have to throw this ball every time. You know what I mean? Where like the guys are good, they're young, but they're good, but they're not there yet. If they're gonna get there, they're not there right now. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree completely. I think this year you're going to see the Steelers go after a running back, one of the top running backs in the draft, because I don't think Connor could get the job done. And there's nobody else that's on that team, like regardless of whether it's Snell or whoever, that I feel could carry the rock like 20 to 25 times per game. The Steelers have always been known to be a running team. Big Ben, I mean, he has a fantastic arm and they have good receivers, but their bread and butter was always like running the ball, like grinding out the ball. And they just didn't have that this year. And that's why I think they weren't successful coming towards the end of the season.
Yeah, the joke is like, I know you're saying that's a good idea too. They do need to get somebody in the draft. I would probably say like maybe even second round, depending on where they land in the draft, I should say, but like, or at least which option they want to go with. Because I still think they really have to go after a QB. They gotta draft a QB. I don't know where the QB's like. I'm not great with college football. I know Trevor Lawrence is the guy, and I know. Is it Ohio State? They got I forgot the guy's name now. Shields. I can't remember. I don't watch college football like that. Fields, yeah. I know he's supposed to be really good too, but I don't know if he's gonna fall to like that low to them specifically. But they have to get somebody. They have to. They have to get somebody, man. Because I think either way, this is his last year, and because the rest of the team is solid. They're actually pretty young and they're solid. It's just they just got to figure that out. And I don't disagree with you where you're like he had a really good year. He did for the especially for he missed the whole year at this age. He had a good year, but it's just the way they lost on Sunday was just it was pretty shameful. And you know what? Honestly, I wish we did a pod last week, but unfortunately circumstances didn't allow for that to happen. But me and you were both talking about this. We weren't surprised that the Steelers lost because the way they went into the end of the year, I was like, I'm not surprised I'm seeing this right now.
No, not at all. I wasn't even surprised one bit. They literally limped it to the playoffs. And I think it got to a point where it's like the Steelers and Browns have such a rich history, whereas the Steelers, they're basically the big brother and the Browns are the little brother. Every single year, they slap them around. Every single year, except for this year. the Browns came to play, and the Steelers still thought that they were still messing with their little brother, when in fact their little brother was now 6'5", 250 pounds. And they came out and they didn't look like they wanted to play. It's only after a while, like after I'd say the second and third quarter, when the Browns were up by so much that they kind of went into like a prevent defense, and all of a sudden Pittsburgh started scoring. Yeah. And prior to that, I mean, first quarter they were up by like 28 points, man. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Crazy.
Pittsburgh couldn't do anything right, and they looked terrible, offensively and defensively, which is surprising because they have a really good defense. They have like a top 5 defense, right? Mm-hmm. But they just got beat up, man. It looked like they didn't even want to play. Like, did they even plan? Did they sit down and come up with a game plan for this game?
It didn't look like they did.
Or did they just say, "Well, this is the Browns. Let's just go and play. We always beat them anyways." So I don't know.
Yeah, it was that was probably one of the oddest losses that I've seen in the playoffs in a while from a team that was supposed to be this good. It was weird. It was weird to watch. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, as much as I believe that I wasn't surprised by what happened, I wasn't expecting them to be down 28-0. You know,
no.
like that. Nobody could have expected that. No, not at all. We're gonna come. I have a feeling we're gonna come back to them. One of my next questions, but I'll ask this next one. There's always a bye team that underperforms or either takes an L after coming back from resting for that week, or they look shaky winning. Now that there's only 2 bye teams with Green Bay in the NFC and Kansas City in the AFC, which one do you think will that be?
I think it's going to be Green Bay. I think it's going to be Green Bay. I know for a fact that KC, usually when they come off that bye, they play really, really well, and they tend to put up a lot of points. And I'm just saying this from like last year and so on.
Right.
I think honestly, I think the Packers are going to have a really hard time against the Rams, just because the Rams, they're one of those teams that just they're built to almost beat the Packers, so to speak.
Well, hold that thought. Don't break down the game just yet. But go on. Actually, go on. Let me not stop you.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, this is something that we'll talk about a little bit later, like kind of like the keys to the game. But yeah, I think that Aaron Rodgers is gonna have a hell of a time trying to go through the Rams. The Rams is like the number 1 defense in the league, and offensively they do just enough to actually win. So I mean, I don't know, how are they gonna play coming out of a bye? You never really know. 2 weeks is usually a long time for a quarterback not to play. So chances are there might be some rust there. The Rams are coming off a big win. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. I don't say KC because KC usually is, they're pretty consistent with how they score. They haven't had a great year like how they have in the past. But they are going against the Browns, and the Browns' defense is not really that great. So.
Which is funny to say because, as you said, they didn't have a great year, even though they went 14-2.
I know, which is crazy. But Mahomes didn't have like a Mahomes type dominant 50 touchdowns and 4,000 yard year like he normally does. But I mean, yeah, that's like first world problems, guy.
It's funny. I don't expect either team to take an L this weekend personally. I don't expect either to really struggle, but if there's one, I may go the opposite way. I think it might be Kansas City, and I don't think it has anything to do with Cleveland. I just think, like, look, we all know they're like an intergalactic video game. They play the league like the league is on rookie level in Madden. Like that's how it feels like. But I don't know if it's sometimes either out of boredom and take like last year for example. Like they won the Super Bowl last year. Who did they face in the first round? Was it Oh, man, I'm trying to remember who they played the first. Houston.
I think it was Houston. Houston had them on the ropes.
Yeah, they were down like almost 3 touchdowns to Houston. They came back and cleaned up. They were down a whole bunch of points to Tennessee. They came back and cleaned up. But even in the Super Bowl, the same thing. The 49ers had them on the ropes, and then they came back and won. But the thing is, you just know that they have that explosive on switch. You know what I mean? So it's like once they hit it, it's like there's almost nothing you could do. And I'm a Niners fan. I was almost like I was like in a sense of like not comfort. I was feeling really uncomfortable because I knew Kansas City was really that good. And Roger, with about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I finally said, fuck, I think I might win. I think we might do this. And as soon as I thought that, they just scored 3 touchdowns like before you can blink. And it's like, I didn't even get mad. I was just like everybody's calling me like, man, you know, I know you're Niners, man. I'm just like, I was just like, it's Kansas City, man. What can you do? Like, I didn't even get mad. I was just like, it's Kansas City, man. Like, it is what it is. What can he say? You know?
Yeah, Kansas City is probably the most dangerous team in the league because they score in bunches and they score so fast, like before you know it. Like you could be up by like 28 points for the first 3 quarters, and then within like the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter,
the game is tied.
The game's tied, and you're like, "What the hell just happened?"
Yeah, they're nuts. But I feel like sometimes, especially this season, like I watched a good amount of their games this year, and I feel like sometimes they play down to their competition. And,
True.
And you know how it works. Sometimes you go to flip that switch and that light doesn't come on. And again, I do like, you know, I know we're going to discuss them later. But I feel like if it's out of the 2, I feel like they might, there's a better potential that they might struggle. I'm saying might. I'm not even saying they will. I'm just saying they might struggle out of the 2. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
Now,
Fair enough.
Now, out of the 6 teams that lost, which one would you say has the brightest future, and which one would you say you were most disgusted with out of the 6 teams that lost this weekend?
Okay, the one that I was most disgusted with was Pittsburgh, no doubt.
Okay.
Because they didn't even look like they should have been there, honestly. They did not look like they should have been there. Mm-hmm. That loss was embarrassing, and there's not one Pittsburgh fan that could sit there and feel good about that loss because from the beginning all the way to the end, they just got beat up. And it was shameful. It was disgusting. They didn't look like they wanted to be there. You know, I mean, you got Claypool, you have Juju talking trash about they're just the Browns, and like come on, man, shut up and play the game. Like I don't have a problem with trash talk, but I mean, come on, it doesn't look like they took them seriously. It doesn't, and because of that, they pretty much got blown out within the first couple of minutes of the game.
And didn't you feel like it was like that karma factor? Like once Juju started talking in the week, right away I was like, this, you know how this works. It usually doesn't play out well for guys that do this, especially against a team that say they've always been dominating. It just historically, you always feel like that karma factor comes in. And I just got that sense. I was just like, I feel like this game is going to be a lot closer than, you know what I mean, where he's making it out to be. And he has every right to feel that way because he's playing against them. But I just had that karmic feeling. Like I was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know how this is going to work out.
It was a complete disappointment. In terms of teams that I think that have a bright future, let me see. I'd have to say the Titans. I like the Titans, man. I've always liked the Titans. I feel like they're a really well-balanced team, like defensively and offensively. Mm-hmm. You know, they have Tannehill, who's a solid quarterback. They have a really good run game. You know, they have A.J. Brown. They have Derrick Henry, of course. You know, they just have some really good young players, and they keep adding to them every single year. So I think they have a very bright future. They just need to get off this hump in terms of getting out of the first round.
Well, last year they made it to the NFC Championship. So I mean,
after they knocked off the Patriots in the first round, that is true. That is true. But I feel like they are a team on a cusp of actually becoming something. All right. So I like them. I like them a lot.
I send my disgusted energy to 2 teams. Actually, I would say the Steelers, and I would actually say the Seahawks. You know, like I know everybody felt disgusted by the Steelers. You basically jacked all my points. There's so obvious reasons, you know, like everything we kind of discussed, their vacated run game, everything else. But to me, there was no way in hell that the Seahawks should have lost that game. I feel like they lost the war of the line because we all know like that defensive line on the Rams is serious, and then Aaron Donald is like. He's probably the closest thing to like a real life Wolverine, like from X-Men.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
because
100%.
You know, people don't realize he's like 6 feet tall, and he's a defensive tackle. So I mean, you've seen some guys in the past, like a Elvis Dumervil, for example, in the past, where he's not tall, but he's on the line, but he's more on the outside. You know what I mean? Where he's coming around the bend, but. This guy's getting double teamed at 6'1", and he's moving guys, man. Like, I don't know how the hell he does this shit. Like
he's strong, man.
He's crazy.
I think he's like 275 pounds,
like,
and I'm sure everybody's seen the
shirtless
the
pictures.
gifs. Yeah, they have gifs of him picking up like 300-pound linemen, slamming them into another 300-pound lineman, and just going around like he's like an action superhero, honestly.
And I say the shirtless pictures because if you see his pictures shirtless, he looks like a superhero. Like he's not one of those guys that has the big, humongous belly and he's just moving guy. Like he looks like a superhero. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense, man. He's got abs. He's got everything. Like he's like chiseled, and you don't even realize it because he's such a he's not a huge guy. He's only 6 feet tall.
Yeah,
but man, he's strong. Like this guy's powerful. When he gets off that push, and he does all his damage on the inside.
I know.
It's not even as if he's like an outside guy, right? He's going right up the tackles. He's going right over. He's lining up over the tackles, over the guards. Like he's just blowing people. He's going through people. He's not going around them. He's going through them.
Yeah, like some of it is speed, but a lot of it is just power, man. Like, and I mean, look at it. Like the guy had 2 sacks. He busted his ribs from basically tackling Russ. Was it on a sack? Like
no. Yeah, he did.
where he hurt his ribs on that play. And honestly, I'd be stunned if he didn't play on Sunday.
Yeah, no, he's definitely gonna play. He might be a little hurt, but he's gonna play, man.
Yeah.
He's gonna play.
And
I mean, with the Hawks, like I hear what you're saying. Like it was disappointing, but I can't say I'm surprised. They have one of the worst defenses in the league.
Well,
they have been, last year. I mean, they played a little bit better coming like halfway through the season. They got Adams back, I think it was, right?
Jamal Adams was a big responsibility for that.
Yeah. So he made the team play a little bit better, but I mean, aside from that, they don't have a good defense, and their O-line is still the same. Like they're one of those teams. It's just like their quarterback covers all their failings because Russ puts up so many points, and then you put in DK Metcalf. He scores a lot of points too. But their offensive line, once they go against a good defense, it's over. Like their offensive line is crap.
Yeah.
They never, and running backs, like when was the last time they upgrade their running backs? They still have Carson. This dude gets injured every single year, Calvin. Honestly, man, he spends more time on the bench than he does in the flipping games. He's always injured.
Yeah, and you're right, because you look at his stats, Russell Wilson's stats. I mean, he went 11 for 27, and he had 174 yards and a TD. Like it's not surprising that that Schottenheimer, the OC, recently got fired from it. You know what I mean? Like it's not surprising because you can't fire the quarterback. So and Russell is too valuable, so he had to take the hit. But it's kind of the same thing where it's like. I felt like they just didn't make any adjustments. Like as soon as he was getting they flummoxed Russ, and as soon as that kept happening, it's like they never made an adjustment. Like it was weird. It was weird to watch. I'm not a Seahawks fan because I'm a Niners guy and they're in my division. So Russell has a chance to go home every night to Sierra. So fuck him. But
screw that guy. Fuck that guy. Him and his pretty ass. Fuck him. His perfect wife and his perfect life.
Yeah.
Fuck that asshole.
He can go fuck himself. But with that said, I was still I can't believe this Rams team is gonna come and beat them because I mean we'll get into this in a moment. I can't stand Goff. He puts the mid-tier run quarterback guy. Honestly. Now I'm gonna surprise you with the team that I think has a bright future. Is not as bright as the Titans because I agree with you with the Titans, but I'm gonna go a different direction. Just stay with me on this. I'm gonna say the Redskins. I know.
I know. I knew you were gonna say that because I was thinking about saying that myself.
Okay, all right.
But then I was like, you know what? The Titans. But I hear what you're saying. Go ahead.
Okay, wow. I thought I was crazy. Okay, fine. That's good. No. But I mean, look, they got a good running back, right? Mm-hmm. They got what's his name again? Gibson. Yeah, Antonio Gibson. Whatever. He's a good running back. They got some decent receivers. They got a good receiver with Terry McLaurin. Sorry, McLaurin. I'm messing up the names today. I'm getting old. But they got him. He's a good wideout. They got a solid tight end with Logan Thomas, and they got a young, incredible line. Which and not just that, they're all under the rookie salary cap. All
first round draft picks, Calvin.
Yeah,
their defensive line is all rookie, all first-line draft picks, literally for the past 3-4 years.
Yep. And you know what? And it reminds me, I want to reference, my team again, the Niners, because when the Niners became really good last year, a lot of it was because the last 3-4 years we were drafting, first, second, third overall. We were picking up guys on the line. Right. It's just this year, obviously, we got mashed up with injuries, but really and truly, when you look at the way they drafted defensively. They got a bunch of guys that they shored up their the front seven. They shored up that whole thing, and I think Washington's kind of doing they're running from that same playbook. But they got some studs. Chase Young is a beast.
He is.
Chase Young is a beast, man, and the rest of them, God, it's impressive. And then you know what? That what's his name? Heineke. He wasn't bad.
You know what? The first thing I saw after I saw him play, I was like, this guy could be the future for Washington.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy played well, man. He threw the deep ball well. He's a mobile quarterback. You see that touchdown this guy scored from 16 yards up?
That was awesome.
I was like, whoa, where did this guy come from? Yeah, they literally just picked him off the streets. Picked him up off the street. I think he was an accountant or something ridiculous like that.
Was he oh my God, really?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, they literally picked him up off the streets. And I remember they said something. I don't know if he was a manager of a grocery store. For some reason, that's sticking out of my head.
I was going to say, is it like the Kirk Warner remix?
Something like that. Exactly. Because I remember I saw an interview where he was saying he was telling people that he was an NFL quarterback and he was going to play this weekend. And he said nobody believed him. You're not an NFL quarterback. Get out of here, right? And then this guy goes in the game and he's just wow, this guy played really damn well. Where was this guy the past couple of months? And I think he was the third string or something like that.
Yeah, he was. And mind you, it's one game, but to be thrown in a playoff game, I know there's not fans in the crowd to to deter you or distract you or anything like that, but he handled it well.
He did.
He handled it well. And honestly, looking at him play, no one should be more disgusted with himself than Dwayne Haskins. Because had he not acted like a jackass the last couple of months, that would have been him playing, not Heineke. He's like a Jamarcus Russell remix to me at this point.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about this guy. I mean, even if he did play, he would have. I don't know if they would have thrown him in. I think they might have risked bringing in somebody off the street.
They might have still played Heineke.
Yeah, exactly. He was just that bad. That's why. This guy's terrible, man. And then top it off, this guy doesn't want to learn the playbook, doesn't know how to read plays. And then, what was it? He went to some party or what did he get kicked out of the league for? It was
well, he went to the strip club. He didn't get kicked out for that, but after he went to the strip club and got stripped of his captaincy, he then went, I think he played one more game and he was atrocious in that last game. It was beyond bad.
He was always bad though.
Yeah. It was beyond bad. And I'm like, man, and Roger, I'm like Dave Chappelle with the black actors. I support the black QBs, man, but I'm like I'm just like I can't do it with this guy. He's not showing me anything right now.
No. And you think he would somewhat get better after 2 years of playing, and it's no. You pretty much suck, dude.
Yeah. No, and I was gonna say with Ron Rivera, they got a decent coach too. Honestly, I think this offseason is gonna be really important in how they use the offseason in terms of drafting and in terms of picking up free agents. They can't go for the same thing where they go after all. They're almost like the New York Knicks in the offseason. They try to go after all these big names. They usually get those big names, and then the big names don't do anything when they get there. But they got to just continue to draft well, especially this offseason, and then pick up some guys that can be an impact in the locker room. You know what I mean? They need some just some solid vets to kind of just put it together. But I think they got something there. It's weird. I know it's weird to say because they went 7-9, but I'm I'm looking at them and I'm like, they got a little something there. But especially that defensive line, because that shit cures everything, man. Once your line is that strong, you're always in games. You're blowing up the other team's offense, and then the back line, the secondary, they have a better opportunity to be successful too, right? So because they can get at easier passes, and the whole thing plays out with that defensive line, and it's so strong they can ride that for the next couple of years before you got to start paying guys and picking which ones that you got to like let go, and you know what I mean? Like they got a franchise tag. Like they have some time to figure that out still.
Yep. No, I agree. I think the first thing they need to do is find a quarterback. That's the biggest thing. I feel like that was the biggest hole that they had this year. Mm-hmm. It's just they need consistency. They were all over the place in quarterback, which I kind of get because, I mean, they're still kind of young and, they had Dwayne Haskins who started at the beginning, and then they had, what's his name? Alex Smith, Alex who came in, and
which is a great story, by the way. That was a great.
Which is a fantastic story. I mean, this guy comeback player of the year, no doubt. Yeah. But he doesn't throw the ball down the field well. Like, I mean, he's great with short passes, but don't ask him to throw anywhere past like 20 yards.
Yeah.
And he's not mobile. Like, he's always protecting that leg. Which, shoot, I'd be protecting that leg too.
You almost lost it. Of course you would.
You almost lost it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I feel like they need a quarterback. Like, if they could draft a quarterback, or even, I don't know, pick up a Matt Stafford, pick up a Darnold, pick up somebody, right?
Yeah.
I think they'd be really successful. I feel like they're only a few pieces away from being really, really good.
Yeah.
And they're in a weak division too, because I mean, the Cowboys, I don't know what's up with the Cowboys. They could never seem to get it together. The Giants,
they're going to have to pay Prescott now.
Like, pay the man and just be done with it. Come on, Jerry. You've spent a lot more money on a lot less. Like, what are you crying about? Pay the dude. If you don't think he's your future, then let him go. Get some draft picks and find another quarterback.
Maybe the Redskins.
But make up your mind. Huh?
Maybe the Redskins will actually, no, he won't let the Redskins take him. I think he quicker sign him before Washington goes to Washington.
I agree. But I think he just needs to, like, make a decision, go with it. He kept Romo there for how many flipping years? And Romo was like, I can't say he sucked, but I can't say he was really that good either.
He was mediocre for a while, for a good while.
Absolutely. Too. And he paid that man top dollar, so I don't get it. Prescott puts up good numbers. Does he win you games? Probably not. But, I mean, at this point, Jerry, you just want to bring people into the stands, and Prescott brings people to the stands.
Well, not these COVID stands, but I
not these COVID stands. Well, I don't even know that, because wasn't there rumors that he was still trying to bring people into his stadiums?
Oh, he did. Games? He did.
So
he did.
He's like, fuck COVID. I don't give a shit. He's like, I need to sell seats.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, but you're right, though, because you look at the rest of the division, Phillies, like, they're, like, in a flux right now. I don't know what's happening with them. And then the Giants, like, they got to figure that stuff out either. I mean, you got Saquon Barkley, who's hurt. We think he's going to bounce back, but you just never know, because it is a knee injury and he is a running back. You don't quite know. And then Daniel Jones.
I don't know about Daniel Jones, man.
Right.
He started off really well, and then after that, it's like, I don't know, who is this guy? Like, he really isn't doing much at all, man. And Saquon, I don't know, man. I feel like he's like, I don't know what to say about Saquon. He could be the prototypical running back. Big, strong, fast. Like, he ticks off all the boxes, but I'm sorry, he just doesn't put up the stats, man. He doesn't. Even when he does play a full year. And you could blame it on the O-line, you could blame it on a million and one different things, but I don't know, man. I don't get a warm feeling from this guy. Like, there's some running backs that you look at them and you're like, wow, this guy could really be something. Like, I look at Jonathan Taylor, right? And I watch how he runs, and he has like a desperation to him, where he's not afraid of anything. He'll run into anything. He'll run through a brick wall. And I'm like, this guy's going to be something. Saquon, I don't get that feeling.
Really? That's interesting.
I don't know what it is, man. Maybe it's his stats. I don't know what it is. And technically on paper, he should be fantastic because he catches the ball. He runs the ball well. He does everything, but...
Highlight plays. God, good Lord. He's had some great highlights so far.
He has, but it's like, his game is like, he'll have 2 or 3 games where he doesn't do much, and then one game where he'll do like amazing. And it's just enough to give you hope to think this guy's a superstar, but then he'll go into another drought with another 2-3 games. And it could be poor quarterback play, it could be the O-line. I don't know, it could be a lot of things. It's just I feel like he's one of those guys who's like, he has so much potential to be so much better than what he's doing right now.
That's interesting. It's interesting because, like I said, I'm more concerned about how he's going to be coming back off this knee injury. Like nowadays, with modern medicine and stuff now, like you can come back and be almost 100% in like 10 months from a knee injury. But it's just that position. You know what I mean? You just
right.
don't know, like how that's going to play out. Like not everybody's an Adrian Peterson that can just come back and give you 2,000 yards the next year.
Agreed.
So it's going to be interesting. All right, so let's get to these playoff matchups here.
Sure.
So we'll start off with I'm going to kind of mix it around a little bit. We'll start off with Cleveland and Kansas City. Can Baker Mayfield and the Browns pull off the impossible?
I think they can, Calvin. I think they can, but it's going to have to be like a perfect storm sort of scenario. Like with Baker Mayfield, he's played really, really well this year. Like really, really well. I've been impressed with him, just simply for the fact that he's played so bad for the past couple of years, right?
Yeah.
He has a pretty strong arm. He seemed really accurate. Like he had 26 TDs, 8 interceptions this year. He threw for 3,500 yards. So he had a good, solid year this year. I love his running backs. I love the running game. Like I think their running game is definitely top 5. Probably, I think they had the best, the second best running game in the league with Chubb and Hunt. Like those guys are fantastic.
Yeah.
I really think that the Browns have a chance, but it really depends. Number one, Mahomes, like you said before, if they pressure Mahomes and he's not throwing the ball well, then they might have a chance. But I think they have a better chance of winning by keeping Mahomes on the bench.
Yeah.
And that all goes through the running game. Like I feel like they are almost like the Patriots from 3 years ago when the Patriots beat Mahomes in I think it was like the semifinals or the AFC finals.
AFC championship.
Yeah, where they kept Mahomes off the bench, on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Time of possession was it was ridiculous.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like this is going to be that type of game.
And they still almost lost. That was a crazy
They did.
thing.
They did.
Mahomes.
Because they came back like they normally do, and they went to overtime.
Yeah, and
lucky the Patriots got the flip of the coin, and they ended up winning. But I almost feel like it's going to be that type of game because I don't think that Baker Mayfield could keep up with Mahomes. If Mahomes is rolling, because their offense is just too explosive, and I don't think they could go point for point with them. So I think the best thing they could hope for is maybe some solid special teams play and keep Mahomes on the bench. Run the ball. Because I feel like Kansas City's defense does not do well against running teams.
Yeah.
And I think if they just kind of 75% run, 25% pass, I think they might have a chance to shock the world.
Yeah, you know what? And I'll give you your respect with Baker because I don't like him. Just based on not just of his game, but just I think it's more how he kind of carried himself. Because I always said he's a little, even though he seems like he's humbled himself this year, but
right.
The first couple of years, I found him a little too cocky for a guy that with the production that he was putting up. I'm like, he's a little too cocky. He's carrying himself a little too highly on his pedestal, and he's not that guy.
I agree.
But this year, he kind of humbled himself, and so I'll give him that. In the last half of the year, he actually was playing well. I don't know, could he go shot for shot with Patrick based on that Ravens game a few weeks ago? I think he has the potential to do it. I'm just not sure if the team overall is built for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the thing with the Browns, underratedly, their D is terrible. They had the easiest schedule in the league, and their defense is still ranked 25th overall.
I know.
And I think that's what's going to be a massive problem going against Kansas City on I think on Saturday. But I do agree in that sense though with that. I think if they do win or they do have a great chance, it's going to be because of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah,
that is the biggest matchup in the game is them versus KC's run D.
Absolutely. Versus Frank Clark versus their big linebackers. I feel like it's definitely going to come down to that. And then you're going to sprinkle in some passing here and there to Jarvis Landry. But I really feel like it's going to be coming down to the running game.
Yeah, I think so too. So you got KC winning this one, right?
I do have KC winning this one, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to see the Browns win, just because I feel like they're one of those fan bases that, like, God.
Oh, they deserve it. They deserve.
They so
deserve some
deserve it.
W's. They do.
Oh, the Dog Pound so deserves it. They deserve a good team, and I feel like they do have a good team this year.
Yeah.
It's just it's gonna have to be like a Pittsburgh versus the Browns sort of game, kind of like what happened last week, where it's like everything that could possibly go wrong for Pittsburgh goes wrong. I feel like it's gonna have to be that type of game, and I just don't know if anybody could possibly have 2 games in a row like that.
If that actually happens, like in that fashion again, just put your money on the Browns to win the Super Bowl right now.
They could be like the Giants of 2017?
Yep.
When they win it, nobody picked them to win anything, and then all of a sudden they go and they blow past good teams. They go blow past good teams, and they go right to the Super Bowl, where they knock off my Patriots, who were perfect all season.
Oh, you mean 2007? That's you mean 2007?
Oh, was it 2000? Okay,
yeah,
yes, 2007. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's hilarious. It's funny, man. Like, before we move on to the next matchup, do you think OBJ being hurt? Do you think that kind of like helped the team?
I do. I think the problem is when OBJ is on the field. I think I don't know if he demands the ball literally, but I feel like Baker feels almost obligated to throw him the ball, and I feel like by doing that, it kind of I guess unevens the offense, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's been like that literally for the past 2-3 years now. Mm-hmm. Like every time they try and force him the ball, they never win, and it never works out well because either the passing game everybody else isn't really doing that well. He's not catching the ball well. Like OBJ in the past 2-3 years, he's been terrible. I'm sorry, man. He's been horrible, and part of it's because of Baker, but part of it's because of him too. Like he's dropping a lot of balls, man.
Yeah.
Like I feel like OBJ needs a change. And I think they should get rid of him, get rid of his salary, trade him off to another team, get a first-round pick, because it seems like they're much better without him. Sorry to say. Like,
I think he basically, the pressure kind of came off a little bit where he can kind of share the ball evenly.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked out to their benefit. It's not going to work out to their benefit on this weekend, but I understand what you're saying from that aspect, because I do wonder that. I'm like, that's kind of interesting that they still won like 11-5. You know what I mean? And he had nothing to do with it, essentially.
Yeah, at this point, I don't see the point of keeping a large salary of like his. And plus, I feel like he's almost a distraction.
Yeah, I think he's been pretty good for the most part this year, other than that whole rumor that we can't really talk about regarding toilet bowl procedures. Yeah, we won't go there. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think he this year he was definitely on his best behavior, and I think it was just bad luck that he got injured. Yeah. But I mean, on a whole, I feel like when he's not playing, I feel like they're a more balanced team. So with the Rams now entering Green Bay in this cold weather, are you giving the Rams a snowball's chance in hell to win in Green Bay? I think the answer is yes for you, right?
I am 100%, man. I like the Rams. I don't like their offense as much as I like their defense.
Yeah,
and I feel like their defense is built to take on the Packers. And the reason I say that is because they have the number one pass rush in the league with Aaron Donald. And then their back end, their secondary is solid. They have I think it's like the second ranked secondary. Yeah. Jalen Ramsey has been shutting down people all year.
Yeah.
So you know that Jalen Ramsey is going to be literally stuck to Adams' hip the whole game.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like Aaron Rodgers can win a game unless Adams scores with the ball. I just don't see it happening. Because then all of a sudden he's going to have to look at other receivers. He's going to have to look at this tight end, Tanyan. He's going to have to look at Scantling. Yeah. He's going to have to look at other wide receivers. And I just don't feel like he's as efficient as he is when Adams is catching two touchdowns. Adams has had an amazing year. This guy's had like 17 touchdowns,
he's been
1,500 yards.
He's been great.
He's been unstoppable all year. But Jalen Ramsey, he shuts people down, man. And that's why I do give the Rams a chance. Because I feel like their offense does just enough to win. They still have Woods on one side. They have Kupp on the other side. Yeah. They have that new running back, Akers, in the backfield, who's really, really good.
He is good.
And Goff is like whatever, man. 20 TDs, 13 interceptions this year. But I feel like if he manages the game, I think they have a chance to win.
Yeah, I think the key for them is they got to run. Like I think they gotta use Akers up like this game because, like to me, I don't even think they should be here.
Right.
But if Donald doesn't play, I think it's going to be even worse for this team. Who like they seem to have mastered Matt LaFleur's offense at this point. And then my whole thing too is just, well, number one, Goff doesn't play well in cold weather.
True.
Like in cold weather games where it's below freezing, he has no TDs and 5 picks. He doesn't handle it well. It's the fact that he had a thumb surgery on his throwing hand. That's not going to do well for cold weather unless he's wearing like super thermal gloves. And those warm weather teams, historically they don't play well when the weather's cold unless they're elite or their defense is elite. And I mean the Rams are anything but elite. Don't get me wrong, their defense is really good. But like, are they gonna do what like say like the Jaguars did a couple of years ago when their defense was just destroying everybody, even no matter what the weather was? Like, are they gonna do that again? I don't personally feel that way when I watch them play, but I don't know. I feel like getting home field advantage for Rodgers was crucial, and I think this was the right team for them. I guess we're on the opposite end of the spectrum because I agree with Ramsey being on Adams. I think that's gonna be a watch, but I think their run game is really good, and I don't think the Rams are great on the run game in terms of the run defense. And I think Aaron Jones is going to be the key to this game. Like I can honestly see him. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets at least like 130 yards on Saturday, but we'll see. But
I hear you, man. I hear you. I only feel that the Rams have a chance just simply because of that defense. Yeah. But I do agree with you in terms of the cold weather games. I feel like if the Rams win, it's because their defense basically shuts down Adams and turnovers. You know, whether it's fumbles, whether it's interceptions, I think the defense is going to have to win the game because I just don't feel like the offense is going to put up enough points. But I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens.
And you know what? To kind of touch on your point too, look, Rodgers is an immaculate receiver. I love Rodgers, one of my favorite quarterbacks. I love watching him play. But in the playoffs, you know, you've seen Green Bay over the years flame out when they shouldn't have flamed out. So would it shock me because of that point? Like if they're to catch an L this weekend, I wouldn't be shocked. You know what I mean? But I do see them beating the Rams. Do you see the Rams beating Green Bay this weekend?
No, I would go for Green Bay. Okay. I would still go for Green Bay.
But you think it's going to be close?
But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be closer than whatever the people expect. Just simply for the fact that of the defense, man. I feel like defense, if you have a good defense, a good solid defense, I feel like a good solid defense can mask whatever ailments you have on your offense. I really, truly feel like that. If they take away the ball for turnovers, if they stop Aaron Rodgers, if they shut down Adams, I think that they have a good chance. Are they going to do it? I don't know. You know, they're playing in Lambeau. It's freezing, flipping cold outside. I don't know. We'll see. But, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. Usually when it comes to cold weather usually benefits the team that runs the ball the best.
That's true.
Because, you know, the ball is hard. It gets cold. Receivers' hands get cold. It's like catching a rock. And, you know, Aaron Rodgers, like when he throws that ball, he throws it with velocity. So not a lot of people are going to want to catch a ball from Aaron Rodgers when it's like negative whatever outside, negative 2 or 3 outside, right?
Right. Yeah. True. Although they should be used to it by now, but I get what you're saying.
They should, but still.
All right, so the next matchup will be the Saints versus the Buccaneers. Do you see the Saints sweeping the Bucs, winning all 3 games versus Brady this season, including on Sunday?
Ooh, that's going to be such a good game, man. That's the game that I'm looking forward to. This could go really, really good or really, really bad for the Bucs. The only reason I say that is, yes, basically the Saints have had the Bucs' number for the past 2 games this season. Like they literally blew them out. The first game, I don't know if I could really say the first game was really indicative of how well the Bucs could play, just simply for the fact that it was their very first game they played. Yeah. It was Brady's first time with his wide receivers. They had no preseason due to COVID. You could tell he had zero chemistry with his wide receivers. You know, Brady is the type of passer that he anticipates where his wide receivers are going to be.
Yeah.
So if he calls a play and a wide receiver is supposed to do a curl route and come back, the ball will be right there by the time they curl.
Right.
But a lot of these receivers, they're not used to that. So, they might do a curl route and then they go and do some other route, or they might, half-ass it or something because they're not sure if they're going to get the ball. So I feel like over the season, the Bucs' wide receivers had to learn how to play with Brady. And it probably took Brady chewing them out quite a few times, saying, listen, why didn't you finish that route? You should always be ready and blah, blah, blah. And you need to be where I think you're going to be for me to actually be able to throw you the ball. I feel like he's had several discussions over the season with that. The second game against New Orleans was basically, it was terrible for Brady.
Oh, that was
Brady
that
threw
was
like
disgusting.
3 picks. It was so bad. One thing I can say is they did not run the ball. Like, I don't know who was calling the plays. I think it was one of the times where it's Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich was calling the plays, because Aaron Jones got the ball, not Aaron Jones, sorry. What's his name? That running back.
Yeah, Ronald Jones.
Ronald Jones.
Ronald and Fournette, basically. Yeah, both of them.
And Fournette, exactly. They only ran the ball 5 times.
Yeah.
And they were just counting on Brady. Brady was passing every single down, running for his life. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible game for them. They literally got blown out. Which brings us to this game now. Brady is the type of person that will sit there and he will study and study and study. I will bet you money that for the past couple of days, he hasn't seen the kids. He hasn't seen Giselle. He's locked up inside some room inside of his mansion where he's just going over game tape. Every single mistake that he's made against this team, and there's a lot of game tape for him versus New Orleans. He has two solid games. Yeah. So he's just going over it and over it and over it and trying to figure out where his mistakes lie. So, I mean...
And don't forget going to bed at 6:30.
And going to bed at 6:30 and while eating his avocado ice cream, 100%. So, I mean, I know Brady's going to be ready. And I know he's calling the plays now. So I think they're going to have a more balanced offense. It seems like towards the end of the season, they played some weaker teams, but it seemed like they had more chemistry, him and the wide receivers. Like you saw Antonio Brown getting more into it. Godwin, Evans has played amazing. So I think they have a good chance this weekend. And then if I look at the other side of the ball in terms of New Orleans is a good team, but I'm sorry, in the playoffs, they melt down.
Yeah.
Look at the past 3 years. Last year, they got beat by the Vikings.
Yeah, that was no excuse for that one.
Yeah, exactly. It was Rudolph pushing off whoever it was in the end zone, catching the touchdown. The game's over. Mm-hmm. The year before that was the game against the Rams.
That wasn't their fault, though.
That wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
No, that was a bad call because that was clearly pass interference. The DB literally hit this guy, hit the wide receiver.
He depleted him before the ball even got there.
Exactly. I still can't figure out that one, but it happened, and they ended up losing. And then the year before that was the Vikings again, and that was the catch heard around the world by Stephon Diggs.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Still cannot to this day figure out what the hell happened and what the DB was thinking about.
You know what was crazy about that play is when he caught it, Roger, when he caught it and he turned around, I was automatically expecting somebody to pop up the other side of the TV screen and tackle him.
Everybody was.
And then when he just kept running, I'm like, and I just heard the crowd getting louder, I'm like, wait a minute. There's nobody there? I didn't even celebrate. I just stood there I can't believe nobody came on the other side of the TV screen to tackle him. It made no sense to me.
Calvin, to this day, I'm convinced that somebody paid off that DB because it was such a bad miss. I can't remember what he did. Did he dive for the ball? I don't think he even dived for the ball.
Yeah,
I think Diggs caught the ball and then he went to go tackle him or something, but he completely missed the tackle. He didn't even touch this guy.
And took out his own teammate on top of that.
And took out the safety too to top it off. And then Diggs just ran. Diggs, I don't even think this guy realized he was that open. At one point, I think he looked like he was going to go out of bounds, and he was like, wait a minute, nobody's here? And he just kept on running right to the end zone.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, that was bad. So New Orleans, they've pretty much had the same team for the past 3 years. And every year, they'll make it to the NFC, usually to the conference, and they tend to lose. So I don't know. I don't know. This one's a tough one, and that's kind of why I'm excited to see this game because I feel like it's hard in the NFL to beat a team 3 times in one season. It's difficult.
And you know what? Just to touch on that, just because you saw it last week, right, with the Rams and the Seahawks, it's really hard, especially when they're on your own division. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a year.
Exactly, because they know you. Like, they know each other now. It's not like there's no guessing. They know that New Orleans has a really good defense. I think they're like third best in the league.
Yeah.
And their offense is really good. Like, they know each other really, really well. Mm-hmm. So it should be a good game. Like, I mean, that's the game that I'm dying to see.
Yeah.
Because I know Brady, and everybody knows that Brady's how Brady plays in the playoffs. How Brady plays in the playoffs is completely different than how he plays in the regular season. Because it's like do or die. Like this guy, I don't know. It should be a really good game, man.
And you can see the team kind of feeding off of that too, like just of that mind shift in the playoffs. Like this week, or even last week too, because they obviously played against Washington. But you're right. There is a difference. There is a difference. And when with him, if we're remembering the way they got their asses handed to them against the Saints the first 2 years, you damn well know he is.
For sure.
And
absolutely.
And that's the thing. Like I like they haven't been on fire specifically this year, but I don't really like what I'm seeing necessarily from the Saints either. Like they're getting healthy at the right time. Their defense is really good. And it's kind of hard to rate them versus the Bears because they're the fucking Bears. Like they're just, like whatever. Like I'm mad that they actually even made the playoffs. It's funny. I think one of the keys to the game, I won't even say the key, but I think one of the keys to this game, I think it could be Antonio Brown. Because if he's that third receiver and he's having a good game for them, I can see this game kind of swinging their way.
Absolutely. It's not like they don't have the personnel to do it. Like, their wide receivers are phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I did notice last week was Godwin was dropping a lot of passes, man. A lot of passes. Bouncing off his hands and all sorts of stuff. The one thing I can't say is Brady. Oh, my gosh. Like, I've been watching, like, I'm still a Pats fan, 100%. And by extension, I'm still a Brady fan.
Yeah, you still love Brady. You still have the man crush.
Exactly. I'm not too crazy about the Bucks in itself. I mean, they do have some really good wide receivers, and they are entertaining to watch. I find that their defense gives up way too many big plays, and sometimes they don't come to play. So I'm not too crazy about that. But Brady is somebody that I honestly watch, and like the way he's throwing the ball this year, wow. Yeah. Just last week, like the fire that this guy was putting on the ball, like he had some zip on the ball, man. And he's throwing it like 30, 40, 50 yards down the field.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people after last year, they were saying, well, Brady doesn't have the arm anymore. Not that he ever really had the arm, because the Patriots offense was all set up for short passes. And then once in a while, they throw a long pass, right? Whereas the Bucks, like their offensive personality is completely different. They're all about the long ball. No, what they call it? No risk it, no biscuit.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why Brady has almost so many yards this year, so many completions, so many TDs. Like, he's had a stellar year, man. And this guy's, 42, 43 or something? Like, I don't even know how old this guy is. I think he's like 42, maybe 43. And I'm just blown away, man. His arm looked good last week. Like, it looked really good.
I mean, look, everything gets negated if Michael Thomas is Michael Thomas. Like, if he has one of those crazy explosive games, then all this shit goes out the window, what we've been saying the last few minutes.
True.
But
True.
I think this game is going to be a lot closer than anticipated. But if I have to choose, honestly, Roger, the hell with it. I would choose Tampa Bay. I think Tom Brady pulls it off.
I agree too. And just because it's Brady. If it was any other quarterback, I'd probably say, no, they're going to lose. But I feel like Brady, just the way Brady is, there's no way this guy's going to take a beating like he took last time. Like, what they're probably going to do, what I think their game plan is going to be, is they're going to keep Gronk in to block.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to run the ball a lot better, because they've been running the ball a lot better with Leonard Fournette. Jones has been out for the past couple of games, but they're probably going to bring him back in. So I am expecting more of a balanced offense.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to do well this week, man. I really do think that they're going to do well. But Brady's definitely the wild card. Like, if you have Brady, you have a chance, and I don't care. They can lose to the team 5 times throughout the season, but when it comes to the playoffs, when it comes to January and playing in possibly February, that's Brady's bread and butter, man. That's what he does.
And you know how it works with sports too, like especially the quarterback position. Once it's over, it's over. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But like with a guy like a Brady, those type of like elite QBs, I need to see it end first. I don't want to have to forecast it. It's kind of like the Spurs. Like when the Spurs finally fell off, it was like, okay, all right, now we can finally erase this. You know what I mean? This image in our mind that we have of the Spurs. It's over now. Now it's over. We got the concrete proof. And this is kind of one of those things too. It's like if it ends ugly, it's like, okay, we got the concrete proof that we may have to go another way with Brady. I know he's only on a 2-year deal. So next year might be the last year, if they bring him back or what have you. And I'm more than likely, obviously, they're going to. But I'm like, I just want to kind of like see it. You know what I mean? And there's just something about the Saints. I'm with you. There's something about the Saints where I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I wasn't crazy about the way they played this year. But they're just such a good team. They're just going to rattle off wins all the time. But it's just when that playoffs come, it's weird. Like, I find them, out of the last 3 years that you're mentioning, the last 3-4 years, I find this team is actually a little, at least offensive, is a little more shakier. Yeah, believe it or not. So,
I find that their defense is better, but their offense seems shakier. I do find that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because
some of it is injuries too. Yeah, some of it is injuries too. But
Breeze was injured. I mean, I find that they're using Tyreek Hill. Sorry, the tight end, the quarterback / tight end.
Oh, Taysom Hill. Sorry, yeah.
Taysom Hill. They're using Taysom Hill a lot more, which is interesting. I guess it's kind of different because Breeze isn't going to be running up the center to try and get that 1 or 2 extra yards or whatnot. So it's interesting. I do like the way that they're using him, but I don't know if it's Breeze. I don't feel like Breeze is I don't feel like he's a top flight quarterback anymore.
Yeah.
I still think that if you rush him, he'll make you pay because he has the ability of finding the open man. But some of the games I've seen, it was just like dink and ducks to his wide receivers, to Kamara. Yeah. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
Now the last matchup with the Bills and the Ravens. Does last week's win versus the Titans give you belief that Lamar could take the Ravens all the way to the AFC Championship game?
You know what? I always want to cheer for Baltimore, and I always want to cheer for Lamar Jackson. But I find that they always let me down. Mm-hmm. And what scares me about Lamar Jackson and that whole team is, like, Lamar is so dynamic with his legs. Like, he runs the ball better than almost any running back in the league, right? Yeah. He doesn't have a spectacular arm, but he's good enough to find the open man and so on, right? I just find that when they come into big games against big competition, I find he's shaky. And I find because he's shaky, the whole team's shaky. The way that they lost to KC this year, I really want to go for Baltimore, but I feel like if they make it to the AFC Championship against probably it's going to be KC, I feel like they're going to get blown out again.
Yeah.
I just don't find that Lamar shows up in big games. Does he have enough to make it past the Bills? Probably. I do think so. And it's just because the Bills' defense is that bad.
Yeah, they're not the strongest.
They're not going to stop them. Their offense is really good. The offense is amazing, but Baltimore's defense is really good too. So I just feel that Baltimore has a good enough offense to beat the Bills, and their defense is good enough to slow down Josh Allen. And I also feel like the Bills' offense runs through Josh Allen and it runs through Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. So I feel if they double team Diggs, and if they keep a spy back there to keep an eye on Josh Allen to make sure he doesn't run, like keep a middle linebacker back there always to watch him to make sure he doesn't run with the ball. I think if they do that, they could win because the Bills have no running game. Yeah. Like they don't have no running game. Singletary, Moss, it's like whatever. They don't do anything.
Now Moss is done for the playoffs. Like they're one of those teams. It's funny. Both teams are like they're pretty similar. You know what I mean? Right. In the sense where everything runs to their quarterback, right?
Yep.
They got two running quarterbacks. Everything runs to them. They don't utilize their running game that well.
No.
They haven't made a decision on who's going to be their guy or one or two guys. I know Buffalo, they didn't use as much running backs, but it's like they can never decide whether it was between Singletary or Moss. I actually think Moss is the better running back, but
So do I.
when your quarterback is the number one rusher on your team, he's great in college. I just don't think having your QB be your leading rusher is the greatest thing in the world. And look, Lamar's Lamar. And they never figured out their run game, number one. Lamar's Lamar, but at the same time, it's like, just to touch on my point, he should not be leading the team in rushing. He had over 1,000 yards for the second year. There was no Mark Ingram. Dobbins wasn't the guy. Edwards wasn't the guy. You know what I mean? I just don't think that's a recipe for success. I think I've been saying it last year, and I say it again this year. He's running the ball way too much. And it's not like their running backs stink. They got some good running backs, but I just don't get it. I figured this year they would have kind of figured it out more, and it's they still doing it again. And last week, they needed his legs out of necessity, right?
Yeah,
but they just couldn't get anything going offensively, so they needed him to run. But I just don't like him doing that 2 weeks in a row. And I know Lamar is the exception to my rule, but I don't know. I just don't like it, man. I don't like the fact that they have him running this much. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I agree completely. I feel like this year, for whatever reason, Baltimore has lost their identity. The past years, they were kind of like the Steelers, whereas their running game was their bread and butter. Yeah. Last year, Ingram was fantastic. This year, obviously, he's Pro Bowler, absolutely. Their running game was amazing, and that's why Lamar Jackson, he was the MVP last year.
Yeah.
They had a solid run game, and because of that, it opened up things for the pass, and then he could run the ball too.
Right.
So, he had a phenomenal year. This year, it's they couldn't figure out what to do with the run game. They put in Mark Ingram for they tried to do some sort of three-headed monster between Mark Ingram, the new kid, Dobbins, and then I can't remember, Gus Edwards, and it didn't work. Yeah. It didn't work. They tried it for a couple games, then they stopped. And then they tried it again, and I feel like they never really figured out who was the guy.
Nobody got a rhythm.
Nobody got a rhythm, and that's the worst thing you could do with a running back room. You're not the Patriots. You don't have specialty guys that do things really, really well. You have three solid running backs that could do, they could catch the ball. All of them could catch the ball, and all of them could run the ball. But you can't give all three of them the ball at the same time. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the season, I found that they started giving the ball more to Dobbins, which is a good thing, and he started running a little bit better. But I just feel like they don't have an identity right now, and Lamar Jackson, he's not going to beat you with his arm. He might be able to beat you with his legs, but most defenses are smart enough to know that you need to contain him. That's the key to the game. Contain Lamar. If you contain Lamar, you have a really good chance of winning. Because even in terms of passing to what's his name? Mark Andrews. Last year, Mark Andrews, this guy had 12, 13 touchdowns. He was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. This year, he has 7 touchdowns. And it's because people have keyed in that Mark Andrews is the guy in the end zone, and also he is the guy in the middle of the field. He's probably their best pass catcher, so they've been double teaming him. Therefore, Lamar isn't doing as well because Hollywood Brown drops a lot of passes, and then they have practically no running game. So I want Lamar to win, but on the same note, I feel that if Lamar goes against KC, they're going to get steamrolled.
Yeah.
So I almost want the Bills to win because at least it'll be something a little bit different. And, I think
it may even be a better matchup.
I think it might be a better matchup because I just think it's just one of those things where it's Baltimore does not match up well with Kansas City. Mm-mm. The things that Kansas City does well, Baltimore is really weak at, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And KC just always has this guy's number. They always shut down Lamar. With no running game, there's not going to be much. And then KC's offense is KC's offense. And I don't think any defense could slow down KC's offense. So,
no, not at all.
Yeah. It should be a good game. I mean, I like Josh Allen. Josh Allen's had a really good year. He's had an amazing year. Him and Diggs are fantastic together. They're like Batman and Robin. Mm-hmm. But they don't have a running game. And, they're somewhat predictable because Josh Allen's going to get the ball. I'm sorry. When you're on the 1 yard line and you need to score, the ball's probably going to go to Josh Allen because it's not going to go to Singletary.
Yeah.
They're predictable. It's just defenses just can't stop them for whatever reason. And Diggs is amazing.
No, Diggs is amazing. And I remember we were talking about this last week with just our private conversation, but I was saying because we're both in the same fantasy league, I was like, I totally regretted not picking up Cole Beasley. I thought about it too hard. I took Sammy Watkins instead, and I regretted it like pretty much almost instantly because he was always hurt. But Cole Beasley is like he's in that Edelman, Wes Welker role, but he does everything underneath, but he does it well. Like, he was a Pro Bowler this year, and there's no Pro Bowl game, but like he got bestowed upon that tag this year, which is the first time of his career, which is amazing for him. But like that's an underrated, really good wide receiver at this stage now. Like, he's not 100%. He's not like just a specialty receiver like they used to play on Dallas. Like, he's actually like a really good receiver.
I agree, but that's what happens when you get a top tier wide receiver.
Yeah, it opens everything up.
Everybody they have to put so much resources into Diggs to make sure that he doesn't take the top off, that they're leaving the whole underneath open for Beasley, and Beasley catches everything. Like, he's always been a great pass catcher. Yeah. The only difference now is that everybody's throwing so much at Diggs that they're basically leaving him open on the underside. And I mean, it's a testament to him. He's a fantastic football player. And look at Brown on the other side. Like, John Brown, like, he was the guy for how many years, and he's just pretty much like this year. I barely even heard anything about him.
Yeah,
it's all been Diggs and Cole Beasley. Right?
Yeah. No, you're right.
So, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, they have a really good offense, and I enjoy watching the Bills play. Like, I've never been a Bills fan. Never, because they're in the same conference as my Pats. Right. So I've never been a Bills fan. But this year, I feel like
not even the Jim Kelly days?
In the Jim Kelly days, yes, I was a fan of the Bills. Like, back in those days when they lost, like, 3 championships in a row.
4.
I think it was was it 4? Was it 3 or 4?
4.
I remember it was twice to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Once to the Giants.
And then one with the Redskins.
And, okay, the Redskins. That's what it was. Yes. I remember there was, like, a stretch where it was, like, 4 fucking years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it was painful.
Like, by the time they got to the 4th Super Bowl, I was more watching it for the commercials. Like, honestly.
I know. If there was ever a team that had a black cloud, like, over them, it was the Bills, honestly. It was the Bills. And I think the first one, I'll still remember, it was the field goal, wide right.
Wide right.
I always remember that because I remember that movie, the Ace Ventura movie. I think it was the first one where they were talking about the kicker, whatever the guy's name was, and he was wide right. And yeah, anyways, the kicker ended up being a woman or something like that, but they actually worked into the storyline. It was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I remember that.
But the Bills, I don't know. There's something about the Bills this year, and I like them. I like them this year. It's too bad that their defense has dropped off because they used to have, I don't know if you remember, the past couple of years, they had like a top-tier defense.
Yeah.
It's just their offense wasn't really clicking. And now this year, finally, their offense has clicked. But now it's like their defense is...
It's just okay. Yeah, it's not that great.
They're okay. Yeah, they're like in the 20s if you're ranking them. I think they have like, what did I write here? They have the 23rd ranked defense in the league.
Wow.
So, I mean, I don't know what you could do with that, honestly. I do not know what you could do with that. It's great to have a great offense, but if you don't have a solid defense, I'm sorry. And your offense has to be spectacular. You have to have a Patrick Mahomes putting up like 40 points a game because chances are your defense is probably going to give up 30, 35 points. So you have to have an offense that could be more explosive and just put up more points than the defense. And the Bills' defense is just, they're not good, man. They're really not good.
You know, it's interesting though. It's this isn't like in particular for this game. Like this is not like they can't use this obviously for this game, but the Rams should be using Buffalo as an example in the sense that they need to get a number 1 receiver. Like I think this team is screaming for a number 1 receiver badly. Like either they gotta go up in the draft and draft the top receiver. Hopefully he's a stud, like a Justin Jefferson, like how he was this year. You know, they got to get somebody like a Higgins, like a T Higgins. Like they got to get somebody like that's of either potential to be a number 1 within the next couple of years, or they got to go in free agency or make a trade and get a number one receiver.
Allen Robinson.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's right. That's a great one.
Allen Robinson. He's going to be the hot commodity this year. Like, honestly, I'm praying that my Patriots actually even at least make a play for this guy.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is a solid number one. He's been a solid number one for the past couple of years when Chicago was absolutely terrible.
Even in Jacksonville, he's never had a good quarterback.
Never had a good quarterback. Always had a shitty quarterback, and he still puts up top-tier stats.
Yeah.
So I would love to see him go to, like, let's say a Rams or, obviously I'd love to see him go to the Pats, even though they don't have a quarterback right now. Go grab this guy.
But think about if he went to this team, like how much everything else would open up. Like Hollywood Brown would be more of a threat. Everything underneath, like Mark Andrews would be more of a threat. The run game would be actually even better. And it opens everything up even more for Lamar, which he's already a threat himself, obviously. Because I know his name was kind of getting shitted on this year, which is a little weird, but I thought it was more just to the fact that, as you said, they lost their identity. I don't think that was really on him. You know what I mean? I think that was just I just felt like they didn't know what direction they were going in this year, which was kind of odd because they had such a great year last year.
Exactly.
I think this team is screaming for a number one receiver. Like if they can get a number one receiver, I think it opens so much things up for this team.
I agree, 100%. 100%. I mean, I don't know, when is Lamar's rookie contract up though? Because once that happens,
all
bets are off,
too.
right?
That's another thing too. I think he might be up for an extension this off season.
Yeah, because if that's the case, they're going to break the. They're going to have to.
They're going to have to.
They'll get rid of Ingram. They'll probably get rid of Edwards. They'll probably bring in another, mid-tier running back because they have Dobbins.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown is still on a rookie contract. Mark Andrews, I don't know if they have to break the bank for him, but he probably is a top 5, maybe a top 10 tight end for sure.
That works, yeah. He is good, but I think they got to, like I said, it's either they got to go up in the draft and get one of the top wideouts, or like I said, like Allen Robinson, you just said, is a really good example of that. Or do they make that? Yeah, you just stole the words out of my mouth. That's the other one I was going to say too. Like, do you make the deal for him and just see how they work together? Like, just as long as you get whoever that number one receiver is, as long as you get him in with Lamar early in the offseason, and it's almost like you just lock them in a room and you just don't let them out until they figure out everything before the season starts.
For sure. I agree completely. 100%.
Yeah, but
overall, with the Bills versus Baltimore, I think Baltimore's going to win, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Just because Baltimore has a better defense and they still have a really good offense. I like Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But I feel like the team is just too one-dimensional right now. And I feel like Baltimore has a good enough defense they're basically going to stack the line. They're going to go after Lamar. They'll probably double team Diggs if they're smart. And they'll force him to get somebody else to beat them. Whether it's Cole Beasley, whether it's John Brown. And I don't think that they'll be able to win. Not as easy as they were able to win last week. So
yeah, it's a hard choice for me because historically, this is the type of game that Baltimore wins. Like, just when you expect them to come up short, all of a sudden their D is bananas. You know what I mean? Like, the defense is bananas, and they're making every big play, and all of a sudden you're just like, what the hell happened? And historically, they always do this to you. You know what I mean? So I want to go for them, and I'm actually rooting for them to win. I am. But because I'm slightly leaning towards the Bills because they're, before the playoffs started, they were my dark horse favorite to get to the Super Bowl. So I'm kind of leaning on that, on that horse as opposed to the Ravens. But I'm rooting for Lamar. I'm rooting for Lamar to win. I want to be proven wrong there.
I do, but you know what? Like I said, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore going against Kansas City, who I think is going to win against Cleveland. I don't know, man. I just feel like it's going to be a complete, they're going to destroy them, and that scares the shit out of me. Because that's just going to be more doubters doubting Lamar.
I know.
That guy who basically crawled in the hole, who tried to say that Lamar would be a better wide receiver than he is a quarterback, and blah, blah, blah. I think he's going to be crawling back out of that hole. He's going to be screaming that again.
I told you.
I told you. What'd I tell you? He had one good year.
He won MVP, you jackass.
Exactly. That doesn't matter though. No, he's not a good passer. No. I think he's fast. He would make a really good tight end, or he would make a really good wide receiver, or,
Yeah,
or some nonsense like that.
He took the L for that, and that's Bill Polian too that made that statement. And Bill Polian is like a Hall of Fame architect. So how he dropped the ball with Lamar to that degree, it's like I wouldn't say it ruined his name, but like it definitely made him look terrible.
Yeah, he got a lot of side eyes for that. Definitely, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. Maybe he was just having a bad day, and then he made the statement, and he was too far. He was too far gone. He had to defend it. So it's like,
or maybe it was one of those things. He was about to leave, and it's like Friday afternoon. He's just like, I just want to get the weekend started. You know what? He sucks. I don't like him. Okay, let's go. I got him playing the catch.
Exactly. Yeah, but I'm going for Lamar. I mean, we'll see what happens. The NFL always has a way of surprising you. So who knows? Maybe KC will lose to the Browns. Maybe the Bills will beat Baltimore. Yeah. And maybe it'll be a conference final with the Bills versus the Browns. Like, who knows, right?
Yeah, it's true. Football has a weird way of making these weird matchups work.
Do I think that game's going to make any money? Probably not, but still. Like, who really wants to see the Browns and the Bills play in the conference finals to go to the Super Bowl?
The joke is it'll probably be a good game, though. That's the joke.
I think it'll be a really good game, actually, because those two teams are actually they're not bad. So, but I mean, just from past history, right? You hear the Browns and the Bills, and you're like, that's like one of those Thursday night games that nobody really truly watches.
Yep.
It's like watching the Miami and the Jets, two shitty teams go after,
or the Jaguars versus the Jets or something, right?
Exactly. It's like the game nobody really wants to watch, even though the teams are really solid this year. Just from the names alone, they're kind of like, I don't know if I'll watch that game, or maybe I'll dial in during the fourth quarter or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, before we go, because we're going to come back next week to discuss the NFC and AFC championship matches. I'll step back for the next little bit, and I'll get your thoughts on what happened. Not necessarily with Capitol Hill, because we've already we already know what happened there, but just to get your thoughts on just everything that happened since then with Trump. I know you got some opinions on that, but I'll let you voice it. I voiced mine last week, but I'll let you voice yours.
Oh man, Trump. What a flippin' train wreck. What a train wreck. Like, this guy was impeached for the second time this week, and I believe that they're not going to have the actual trial until the 19th of January because the Senate is, I guess they're gone on vacation again or whatnot.
Yeah, they don't come back to the 19th.
They don't come back until the 19th. So technically he's still going to be in power for another week? Maybe 2 weeks, I think?
Another week.
Yeah, another week. So, I mean, what can I say about this guy? I have to blame the Republicans for this because they've basically let this man do whatever he wants. He thinks he could say whatever he wants, and he thinks he could do whatever he wants. And because everybody's kind of giving him a pass, this is what happens when you have a dictator who's in power, who thinks he's a dictator and thinks that he's a king, and thinks that he could do anything he wants, and nobody's there to stop him. Like, I mean, I thought when he got impeached the first time, it was bad enough. He was trying to get Russia. Was it Russia or the Ukraine? I think it was the Ukraine. He wanted to get the Ukraine to try and open up an investigation into Hunter Biden and also Joe Biden. So he was trying to get another country to basically say that they opened up an investigation on his competition for the presidency. I thought that was bad enough, and that's highly illegal, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, that's beyond reprehensible.
That's beyond reprehensible. But the Republicans gave him a pass. They said, yeah, it's pretty bad, but it wasn't bad enough, right? And now look at this time, what happens. Capitol Hill gets attacked by a mob. And I don't think people fully realize, and I know we had this conversation last week, I don't think people truly realize how bad it was and how bad that situation is. So you had Congress and you had the Senate counting votes, or counting, I guess, district votes for Joe Biden. And you had a mob basically run into the Capitol Hill, ransack all the offices. They spread feces all over Capitol Hill. and they were basically a room away from getting to the congressman. Like, that's unbelievable. Getting to the congressman and the senators. I heard a few of them, you were even saying how they wanted to hang Pence, his vice president, because he didn't want to go along with refusing to count votes. They even built a gallows, like, one of those old school gallows where you hang somebody.
Yeah.
They built one right in front of the Capitol for this guy. So you have guys that are running in with guns, with mace. They're spraying the Capitol Hill police. The police is just letting them go through. So I'm not even going to talk about that, because I think that Capitol Hill, like the police force there, I think they were in on it, because I saw way too many policemen just basically taking the barricades and just kind of letting them in. Whereas if it was Black Lives Matter, they would have had the National Guard, they would have had the army there, they would have had sound cannons, they would have been shooting people with rubber bullets. But it looked like they literally had like 15 cops there for 700,000 people who are ransacking through Capitol Hill. And then you have Trump on the other end, who's refusing to send in the National Guard. So the senators who are inside of Congress, who are trapped in a room with about 10 guys with guns, is basically calling the White House saying, hey, why isn't there more police here? Where is the National Guard? And the White House isn't returning their calls. The Secretary of Defense, who has the ability to call in the National Guard as well, he's not taking any calls either. So who's the one who sends in the National Guard? It's basically one of the generals from one of the armies who didn't even have the ability to send them in, but he calls the mayor, the governor of Maryland, and said, listen, you guys have to send the National Guard in right now because Capitol Hill is getting taken over. And then finally, he sends in troops to go and help these cops. So all the while, you can't tell me that this whole thing wasn't planned. Trump is the one who put out the tweets. He's the one who encouraged everybody to go to Capitol. He basically said you need to kick down doors and do anything you have to do in order to stop it. And then when it kind of came to sending help, he refused to send help.
Well, I don't know if you caught this, but Ayanna Pressley, who's the rep for Massachusetts, her and her husband basically we're actually going to read this verbatim. This is from The Hill, thehill.com. It said in a recent interview that panic buttons that she previously used in the Congresswoman's office were taken out before the violent riot at the U.S. Capitol.
Oh my God!
So yeah, so like I said, even in my the pod last week, I'm like, I think it's way deeper than just what we're seeing. But again, I just feel like there's something going on, because like I said, that just sure. on the fact that it's the most secured building, or one of the most secured buildings in America by far. And the way it got taken over, I mean, and I'm not like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I mean, I know government could be, and especially if things like this was happening, if Trump wasn't, pulling the orders to get help for these people and stuff, obviously, then yeah, it could be chaotic. But it's just, I don't know. I just feel like that's a little too simple. Maybe that's just me, but I just feel like it's a little too simple.
You know what? I feel like there's layers to this. Like, they were even saying how some of the people that were rioting were the same people that actually the day before they came in with some of the congressmen for I guess, they sometimes they do like walk around sort of thing. I heard that those same people came in, and Republican congressmen were walking them around, kind of showing them around where this is where Nancy Pelosi sits, this is where this person sits, this is where that person sits, this is where Schumer sits, just to kind of give them the lay of the land. So there's no way you can tell me that this isn't organized, and this isn't like an organized strike. The Republicans aren't going to admit it, because I think at this point they're scared. They're too scared of Trump to actually say anything, because the man did get 70 million votes. But it's like, come on, man. Like, what does this guy need to do in order for you guys to impeach him? And only 10 Republicans, 10 out of 255, actually ended up voting to impeach him. It's like, how bad does it have to get? Does he have to literally, in front of a camera on the White House steps, call a black person a nigger and then stab him in front of the camera? Like, what is the turning point here? Like, how bad does it need to get for these guys to finally kind of vote him out, so to speak?
you're watching all of these the rioters and stuff get they're one by one they're getting arrested because of social media. Nobody can help themselves. They record everything, so they make themselves such a hard target to get. You know what I mean? Like, it's just such a hard target.
Calvin, let me just say this one thing, okay? Before you carry on, I feel like this whole thing is like the perfect example of white privilege. Perfect example of white privilege. Some people, mostly white people, think that they could do whatever they want and there will be no consequences. Guys are on social media, fucking walking out with Nancy Pelosi's podium. They're openly saying on social media that they just ransacked the Hill, they just attacked a police officer, and so on. Like, who the fuck does that? And think that there's no repercussions. And you know what? They're kind of right too, because why weren't they arrested at the time? Why were they able to walk in and out, and nobody stopped them and nobody do anything? I think they had like 4 arrests, and there must have been thousands of people running through Capitol. Thousands. It's only now the FBI is getting involved because obviously they look bad. Because they're like, how these people walk into Capitol, kick down doors, ransack the whole place. One guy's sitting there in his seat, has his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk, writing her a note. How are these people not arrested? How are they not arrested? How are they allowed to do that? Blows my mind. And what, 4 people killed? Out of those 4 people, 3 of them died of a heart attack. And the other woman was I think she was a vet, and she was trying to literally break into the room that the congressmen were in, and one of the Secret Service men, Pence's Secret Service, actually shot her through the window.
Yeah, put a bullet in her neck.
Yeah, and you know what the cops were doing? There was cops there. You know what they were doing? They stood aside and let this woman try and kick through the window. And then when she got shot, everybody's like, oh my God, they're shooting. Calvin, yeah. I like it's the most ridiculous thing. Like, if it was a movie, I couldn't write this. I could not write this movie.
I think some of the arrests, like the one I saw last night or this morning. Let me try to find the name actually before we wrap up here. But an Olympic swimmer, basically. Yes. You saw that, right? Yeah. I can't recall the name right now, but the Olympic swimmer basically was there the other day too. Like they're gonna do that and then go back to Japan to defend America for the 2021 Summer Games. Like, Calvin, white privilege. I'm telling you, because you and I know, we've spoken about this, and we see what goes on when black people just simply protest. They're not rioting, they protest. You've seen the pepper spray in the face that the cops spray kids. They spray, like, they'll go and walk up to you, take your mask off, and pepper spray you in the face. They shoot rubber bullets at people. They have sound cannons. They have all sorts of stuff. And this was just for somebody who's protesting. Yeah. But
then you go and you see the flip side, and it's like Capitol Hill is unprotected. People are running through. Like, they had one guy who was had full tactical gear, like he was SWAT, with zip ties on his belt buckle, like he was gonna go take hostages or something.
There were cops cops from other states that were coming in there as part of the rioters. So,
like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was.
And these guys crazy. Walked in and they walked out, and nobody stopped them. Nobody did anything. Like, even when the National Guard came in, they didn't arrest anybody.
I know.
It's only now, like a week later, FBI is going through social media trying to figure out who did what. They actually killed a cop. They bludgeoned a cop with what was it? It was
fire extinguisher.
With a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, cracked his skull open.
Like, what the fuck, man? A homicide happened in Capitol Hill. This is supposed to be one of the securest places in the United States. It wouldn't be worse if they broke into the Pentagon or broke into the White House. This is Capitol Hill. This is where all the congressmen is. This is where the Senate is. Yep. And to think that all these people were literally a room away from getting into Congress and getting into the Senate to actually, like, could you imagine what they would have done to Nancy Pelosi or Schumer or even, what's her name? What's the name of that Latina politician? Ocario.
Yeah.
I could never pronounce her name.
The name is escaping me right now. I'm terrible.
Yeah.
I'm showing my age, Roger. I'm showing my age with the names.
Could you imagine what would happen if they had access to these people, or even Pence? Like, they probably would have hung them, killed them, beat them, raped them, done something. Because I'm sorry, that mob did not look like they were reasonable people. And they were literally a door away from getting these people. So you can't tell me that this wasn't planned. You can't tell me that, the cops weren't in on it. You can't tell me that the president wasn't in on it. You can't tell me any of this shit. You can't even tell me that some of the Republican governors weren't in on it. Because I truly believe they were telling them, listen, this is where Nancy Pelosi's desk is. This is where this person's desk. Because they knew exactly where they were going to.
Yeah.
Like they were literally minutes away from when they took the congressmen and the senators out of that big room, they were literally minutes away from catching them in that room. They just missed them.
Yeah,
so
that was a crazy ordeal. It was crazy. I mean, the scene was, as we all know. I was just more annoyed at the fact that, just like I said again, I just felt like it was too easy. Like just watching it and just saying, it's white privilege and just people rushing it. I'm like, that's too easy. Like it's just those places are too well secured for something like that to happen. Even if it's a mob,
you think so? You would think so, right?
It's just crazy, Like I don't know. I would get deeper, but I can't find my tinfoil hat. So.
It blows my mind, man. It blows my mind. Whenever I've been pretty much following all the stories of everything because I just find it pretty interesting. It's like an episode of 24. That's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
Remember with Jack Bauer? Like Jack Bauer is like the super spy that goes and he'll kill 50 people by himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's ripping out people's throats with his teeth and shit like that. And it's like every episode he's in a life or death situation, and he always seems to come out on top.
And somehow
it almost seems like an episode that.
And somehow we'd always get it done right before the commercial break. It was amazing. It was weird, but
it was literally on that level. Like honestly, it was on that level to a point where it's like this is just so ridiculous that I can't even believe it's happening. It feels like it's a movie or something. But then you realize, wait a minute, this is real life. And the president actually did send out tweets inciting people, telling people to come to Capitol Hill, kick down the doors, and do whatever you have to do in order to stop it. And then he said, with his own vice president, if Pence doesn't stop the vote, there will be consequences. And there's going to be a lot of unhappy people. Like, what the fuck, man?
The only thing that was, I thought that, it's weird with this inauguration. I understand why they're kind of doing it. It's kind of to revoke his powers and... going forward, post-presidency in terms of having Secret Service detail for the rest of his life and pension and being having the ability to run again. Because I'm like, you're setting up the paperwork to impeach him on January 19th. His last day is the 20th. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's almost like this is pointless. But I understand it for the other reasons, but it's like, but it almost seems pointless to impeach him when he's literally walking out the door anyway.
But even if anything, the second impeachment is going to be symbolic, because you cannot allow somebody to do something that grievous
he's
and get away with it. You can't. Yeah. And I don't care whether they're in power or not. You can't allow that ever to happen. And what really turns my stomach is the fact that these same Republicans that were trapped in the same room as Democrats are not truly stepping up and saying how bad this actually was. A lot of them are actually making excuses for him. And it's like, how bad can it possibly get for you to actually turn on this guy?
I'll tell you what, though, before we wrap up, I think it's going to get salacious this next few months because, look, Donald Trump has had 4 years of information, of having his finger on the button, of information that the world would not have information to. Can't you see this man singing like Patti LaBelle?
Oh, it's gonna be so bad.
On all secrets, people better hope he didn't keep notes or a USB stick to put all this stuff on. Because
USB, Donald Trump doesn't know how to use USB.
Well, what he's gonna do? Somebody in his family does.
On an unsecure line, he's gonna call Putin and he's gonna tell him all their secrets. You know why? Because he's that stupid, and because he doesn't give a fuck. That's why he's gonna do it. So far, nobody has slapped him on the wrist. Nobody's been able to slow anything. Regardless, he's done so many shitty things that they don't even know where to start in regards to impeaching him. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I think this is the first time, after he lost, that somebody said, "No, you did not win. You're going to have to leave." And that's why he's throwing up these temper tantrums. Everything's all of a sudden voting is, Georgia and all these places we want them to count some votes, but we don't want them to count other votes. We only want him to count votes when I'm up, but then we want them to stop counting after we get the lead. Like it doesn't even make any flippin' logical sense. If you sit there and you watch the media and TV and just understand what he's asking, it doesn't make any sense. He's like, I'm ahead of Georgia, but then the mail-in ballots comes, and he's like, the mail-in ballots are fraudulent. So I want them to stop counting, but I still want them to count the ballots that are actually in person, because obviously I'm winning with that. But let's just disregard everything else. And then the rest of, like, because when a president is on the ballot, like the down ballot includes all the different governors and so on, right? So a lot of the governors that won were still Republicans, like in Georgia and so on, right? So what they're basically saying is they think that the count for president is incorrect, but since they won the underballots for the governors and so on, they want that to stand.
Right.
How does that make any damn sense? How does that make any sense? We're okay with these ballots, but we want to disregard these ballots because we feel they're fraudulent. How could one half be fraudulent and one half not be fraudulent? It doesn't even make any damn sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Man. Yeah, it's honestly, it's like a soap opera. I love it because it's interesting as hell, and I just find it hilarious because I think Americans in general, I feel like they I don't know, call it a lack of education, call it a lack of common sense. I don't know what it is, but I feel like half of the United States is racist and, somewhat uneducated. But then it's like, it's either one or the other. It's so bipartisan out there that either you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, and there's no middle ground. And if you're a Republican, Trump could basically go and, kick you in your flipping teeth, and you're still going to praise him like he's Jesus. He'll take away your health care. He'll increase your taxes. He'll take all the money you give him, and he'll go and buy another private jet on an island somewhere. And all the while, you'll praise him and say, thank you very much for screwing me over.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like the legions of people that follow him are like especially the people that was riding and stuff. Like he wouldn't spit on the ground that you walk on.
Not in a second.
No. So that's the thing. That's the thing I think, which is like the most hilarious part of all of this.
It truly is. It truly is.
But let's wrap up. Because we'll come back next week. I'm sure.
Sure.
When we wrap up again, there's probably going to be more stuff. That's why I'm like, I don't really get into politics, really and truly, when I'm doing these things. But it's like, number one, I wouldn't even say it's hard not to, but it's the stuff is so salacious. You almost feel like you got to say something for at least a few minutes.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's highly entertaining.
No,
I do feel like we're living in just these times in general. I feel like we're living in some sort of bad soap opera.
Yeah. I think General Hospital is better though. No. Bold and Beautiful is definitely
Bold and Beautiful. Yeah.
Bold and Beautiful is better. Definitely rather the Foresters running the country. I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely.
All right, sir. So we'll be back next week. We'll chop it up more with the NFC and AFC championship games.
Perfect. Thank you very much, sir.
No problem. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the Ave Podcast. I appreciate your ears giving me that attention. Special shout out goes out to South Shore family member Roger Callendar as we break down each round of the NFL playoffs like we do every year. We'll be back up next week with a follow-up and discuss a preview of the NFL Conference Championships and get into some of our selections for the NFL awards. We'll also be back next week with an early look on the NBA season so far, and I'm going to get into my Harden thoughts just a little more, plus the NBA protocol with COVID, and if the season will go through uninterrupted. We're going to dive deep into it all. And for those who haven't checked out my all-time NBA fantasy draft on my South Shore Ave YouTube channel, do so. Go check it out. Like and subscribe to the channel. A new episode of The Stoop will be up on February 1st. So go ahead, like and subscribe to the channel once again. And as always, to check out any and all past episodes and past shows, head over to SouthShoreAve.com. Once again, that's SouthShoreAve.com. For Roger Callendar, this is Cal C. And you just tuned in to the Ave Podcast on South Shore Ave Radio. All right, until next week, peace. We out.